In this video, we are going to cover a ticket style video for installing server with desktop experience. Now, if you're taking this course, you know you're in the lecture where you're watching a lecture and then basically you're looking at the demo and you're trying to understand things in the beginning, and later you're going to come across a lot of labs in this whole course. But we also have this idea of that once you're watching a chapter, can we tell you some tickets that we will come across in our jobs and we know from our experience so you can practice it. Now, we're going to cover a ticket for server desktop experience. We're not going to do the server core. You can just watch this video. It's simple. And the whole part of this ticket is going to be how in in real world when you become a junior sysadmin or a server admin, what type of tickets will you come across towards installation of a server? Now, this is a basic ticket that I'm sharing right here, where basically it says ticket, and this could be by anyone, maybe your coworker, senior engineers, manager, or whoever is in charge of you to give you or assign you the tickets. So it says right here, install a Windows Server 2019 with the company standard configuration. You see, you can't just go to the company and start spinning a server and just do whatever you want to do. So this is why when you land a job as a server engineer, I'm sure there are other engineers and they have already done some sort of templates, or they know what type of memory or storage is just a standard for any type of application that we are gonna basically give our employees or developers or things like that. Then assigning a license is again, this is something that they will already know where to go and grab their license. They probably would have already done that. They will give you the access, or maybe they will say just go to this specific folder or this specific site and grab the license, and this is the specific license that we use. So in the video you learned about the standard, the data center. That's something you can review again. So this is something that's going to be given to you. And then after that, there are some common things that people expect from a sysadmin, where you have a brand new server, you name it, you update it, and there's common things that you do with the server to make it secure. And also after that, there is post installation steps. And again, that is something you learn from our videos. As an IT professional, you just have to wait for them to tell you these things, because post installation is something that how would you know what to do with the server after that? So when it comes to installation of a server ticket in a real world environment, you don't just install server just because randomly you like to install something. You have to install a server because it has a demand, and most likely it's either running a web server, a service, or something like that, or maybe a third party application, maybe some sort of cloud application that needs to connect back to your environment. Whatever it is, they want you to get a server, but then after server there's a lot of configuration that you have to do based on the need in that company. So in this company, we are given a ticket and we have to actually install IIS web server, and then we also have to configure a web application on the server. So hopefully you have finished the video. Now let's go ahead and open the lab that where we are going to kind of replicate this type of ticket. You can open a new tab in the same browser or another browser. Let's go ahead and do that. And what you need to do on the left side, you will click on Practice Lab, type 2019, and this is the lab we are going to use, Windows Server 2019 Administration Concepts. This lab is automatically attached to this course, and later on when you get to the lab modules, you are going to cover all of these labs. But right now, whatever we are doing, we're doing something very custom. So I'm showing you the manual way of getting to that labs in case the buttons in our units are not working or they're not available. You can select that button and directly get into what I'm doing, but I'm just showing you the manual process. So open the new tab and type 2019 in your practice lab section and go ahead and open this lab. So let's go ahead and do that. And we are going to launch the first module, ignoring everything on the left side, ignoring anything that comes with this lab. And when we say ignore, this means we're doing something custom. You cannot reach out to this support at this point because you're doing extremely custom stuff at this point. So go ahead and turn on all of these devices. We are going to work on basically the PLAB SA01, which is a standalone server at this point. We have domain controller here, and this is a member server, and all these other servers are running. And in reality, that is exactly what's going to happen. You're going to get hired. You're not going to be the first one to build the whole system for them. It's going to be, if you're a junior server administrator, somebody have already configured everything in that company, Active Directory is working, and then they will let you know that we are using Hyper-V. Now, this is important right here. If you never heard about it, you should definitely consider learning about virtualization. They may either be using Hyper-V, which is kind of like a virtualization technology by Microsoft, or they may be using VMware, which is another very famous one. So both Hyper-V, you're going to learn a lot in even in this course and from labs and everything inside our server courses. If, let's say, you feel like you want to learn more about the VMware, all you got to do is to go back to the portal. And once you click on my course, there's a VMware for IT professional course available. So again, this is a different technology, different product. So the reason I am actually sharing these two important information is that when you go to the company and you come across installation of a server, most likely 95%, I feel like the ticket is going to be on top of virtualization. So if you don't know how to add things in virtual systems, then that is kind of stress for you. So VMware is going to look like this. Let me remove this. A VMware is going to look like this, where you will access it through a web, and then you will see your like, let's say, your company data centers and everything. And then here you're going to right click here and then create the server. So this is something you're going to learn from the VMware course, and then the server will be like a virtual server right here. All of these other tiny miny things are here and there, you just learned that from the VMware course. For Hyper-V, we have that capability to actually give you that type of training. So we are going to do this whole process on Hyper-V, so you can learn from this lab as well. So let's go ahead and open. So in this lab, you see we have P Lab SA01. We are going to click on that, and we will see that we have Hyper-V already installed on the server. Now, you must be wondering, how did Hyper-V actually exist on this server? Again, this is something, like I said, when you go to a company, they may already implemented this solution before you, so you're not going to be the first one. But if you want to know, you go to Server Manager, click on the tools, manage roles, and from there we can actually add Hyper-V. So I'm going to actually, once this is done, I'm going to show you how Hyper-V is installed on this server before you even get started. So let's go to manage, add roles, and then you come down, click on next, next, and plab SA01, and you see right there it says Hyper-V install. So like I said, this is already done before you even start your in the company. Most likely that sort of solution is already done. So in our case, let's say our system administrator, the senior administrator, have already installed Hyper-V. They have already domain controller is already running inside the Hyper-V, all these other server, and then now they want you to install a brand new server for that ticket that we are going to resolve. All right, so to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the server. We're going to click on Start, Windows Administrative Tools, and here you see there is a Hyper-V Manager available, and we're going to open it. As you can see, there's nothing inside this Hyper-V, but in most cases, when you start working with the companies, they may have a bunch of virtual machines, domain controller, and different type of applications, servers running, and then people will break it down for you that this is our domain controller, this is our file server, print server, blah, blah, blah. They will give you all that sort of rundown as a sysadmin. Here, we need to just install a normal operating system just to get that practice. And I'm going to talk about how some of the things basically we need to get it from Microsoft. So the first thing is that when you're installing a virtual server, remember that we need the ISO, which is kind of like a virtual CD. Now, in most cases, you basically have that already inside your business, meaning somebody already installed and downloaded it from the Microsoft licensing portal, and then basically they kind of keep it in one area where they call it ISOs inside their normal network. So in this case, if I go to C drive and I click here, you see I have ISO folder, but this could be on the network. So everybody in our team as an IT professionals, we may have access to this ISO because we need to install things again and again. So sometimes people do this, they will update their ISOs regularly, and sometimes that you may not have access to the site. Meaning, in most cases, if you're new and you're junior, you may not have access to the volume licensing. And that is something your manager, your senior engineers will have access. And then you will need to basically coordinate with them that I need a license for this specific server. And then they will download the license and give it to you. Maybe the ISO is already there and they'll say, just use the ISO, but use this license. So for licensing, I feel like you should spend more time on internet and find out more because they always change things around. And also, when you go to the company, try to understand how your company have done licenses. So then this way you're not just throwing out data center licenses or standard, and there are different type of SQL licenses. You have to kind of work out in this area with your own company and see how they have done the whole licensing part. So this way you will have a better idea. Let's assume our senior sysadmin have already downloaded that part and he told us that ISOs of the server is available in an ISO folder. Whether it's a network folder or local folder, we know where it is now. It's under C drive. So now we know that part. We're going to go to the new, go to the virtual machine, and then here is the naming convention. Now, a lot of time when you start working, the best thing you can do is to look at your server, how they have named it already. So just like in this image, this is an image. I may look into this and of course it's blurred out. There could be a bunch of server named the same way. And that is for companies to keep track of how they want to name their server. Later on, they may do reporting. It's easy for them to do things. So in virtualization, people do this part. So in this case, we're just gonna call it IIS app. I'm just naming it that way, right? There's nothing behind it. Then we have to actually pick where do you want to install this virtual machine. Now, this is very important. As a new engineer, you really need to know when you are installing a server, you may come across different type of data stores, storages, and companies have big type of storages. So, of course, you don't want to install a server where the storage is running out, or they may have designed that storage not for server, for something else. So make sure you do that asking type of questions like, okay, if we have to install new servers, do you guys prefer something like, how do we choose different type of storages? And they may have a different techniques to figure things out between the engineers. So when you pick a storage, make sure that you kind of find out that do you have enough storage. So we have C drive that I'm installing this. You can simply go to C drive and find out we have only 21 GB left, but with the virtualization we can just get away with that because this is just a temporary thing. So we're going to click on next here. Now, of course, this is where this is generation 1, generation 2. This is something that you will need to learn more about virtualization, like Hyper-V. What does it mean by generation 1? It may support some older stuff. Generation 2, maybe just new stuff. And then that's where you may need to find out more about it. I'm going to just pick the generation 1 for now. And here, RAM, again, this is about your resources. If you know about virtualization, and I think you should, let's say you don't know about it right now, I'm just going to stop you over here because then this means that you have not taken our network and system administrator core services course, because that is where we explain things. What is this? What is virtualization? What is DNS? What is DHCP? And then explain it, and then there's a practical part of it. That sort of explanation will not be done in this type of course. This assume that you already know those core services, and now you know about RAM, you know about memory, you know about storage. So we don't need to teach you this stuff. We just need to teach you about how to do it as a sysadmin. So if you are struggling by now, you should stop here. You should take our core services, systems and network administration course, either self-paced or with a coaching style. So you definitely can go and do that and then come back to this course. But if you have already done it and you know that knowledge, then simply here we have enough RAM. So we will just do 2 GB. Don't go above that because this whole server may not have that capability to give you more RAM. So that again, as an engineer, you need to always remember that you work on servers based on resources. So I know that the maximum that I have is 4 GB, but I can go with the 2 GB over here. So I'm going to click next. And then for network connections, you're going to pick the virtual switch, which has a network connection. We're going to click next. And then again, this is where the storage part will come. Like, how much do you want to give the size of the storage? So we don't have enough, right? So we're going to just keep it 20 for now. And then here we're going to click next. And then this is where you install the server from the ISO, which is the file that you have downloaded early on that talked about it. How do you get that file? And then when you click on install right here, we're going to click an image.iso. This is like a virtual CD. So you go to the PC. In this, we have put it in C, ISOs, and this is the image. You see how it looks like CD. So we're going to pick that, and we're going to pick next and finish it. But we're not done yet. At this point, we have set up our virtual machine. So once you have set up your virtual machine, you can right click on it and you can go to settings, and then here you can make more changes, and that again depends on your company. They may require you more changes, more advanced changes, and then you can do that. Like for example, here our company is telling us that don't give a server one virtual CPU, one CPU, vCPU, so give it two. So I'm going to come over here and apply that as a standard because I don't want trouble when I start this machine. It's going to be either slow or my application may not work properly. So now that I have given everything two vCPUs, 2 GB. I'm going to go ahead and right click on this VM and start it. Now with 2 GB, we got this error. Now, this is something that you should, every time as a sysadmin or server engineer, you can never close an error very quickly. This is going to be a very bad mistake. Just look at the error. It's telling us not enough memory. And we're like, okay, I think we really can't do that. So let's go ahead and stop this, turn off this server one more time, and I'm gonna go ahead and go to settings, and actually we may have to come down from 2. So maybe we do need to come down because the whole server is using that sort of memory. So you see I just went back to 1024 and I'm gonna apply and then click OK. So now let's see if I can get away with that error. So I'm gonna go ahead and start, and you see the server started. I didn't get any error, so I think my server is happy at this point. I'm going to click on connect. This is how you see in virtualization. There could be a different type of virtualization will have different techniques to connect to the whole virtual system. So when I connect to it, you see it's connecting. It's going out there. It's going to pick up the CD automatically, and it's just starting right now. And there you go. It automatically picked the loading file. Sometimes it may ask you to hit the enter key. So you got to be very quick. You got to click inside the black screen and quickly click the keyboard key, any key, and then basically that loading will start from that virtual CD. This is the type of screen that you will see almost all the servers, 2016, 19, 2022. Every time, if you even, let's say you have a physical server, you plugged in a physical CD or USB, the same way, you're going to get everything same from here. We're going to go ahead and click next, and we're going to click on install now. Now, in your video, you have learned about standard licenses, data center licenses. And again, I went out there and my senior engineer told me that we're going to be using the data center desktop experience. Mean I need a GUI for that. I need to see things. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that one, and I'm going to click next here. I'm going to go ahead and go through this license, accept it, click next here. And of course, you're not upgrading a server, you're actually installing a brand new server on the virtual machine. So we're going to do custom. And you see how we have a space 20 GB. We're going to pick that and click next after that. And then after that, it's just going to be simple automatic installation. It's going to go through all the installation, updates, finishing a file. And what's going to happen? You're going to have a brand new server available, and we will just do the post installation setup after once this is over. So make sure you give it its time. It requires some patience. And again, this is very natural stuff for any engineer or IT professionals to wait for it to happen. It depends on your virtualization technologies, your storage, how fast they are. If it's slow systems, you're going to have poor performance. If it's fast systems, you're going to have a good performance. So again, that's up to your company. Now, while that's installing on this server, as your lab is very powerful. You can go to the domain controller right now just to play around with, okay, if my company have a domain controller, it's going to look like this. I can just go and start playing around with it right now. Don't shut it down because the domain controller are kind of like the lifeline of these labs. So you can actually open the domain controller like this and just kind of go to tools and then see, okay, you know what? They have tools here, they have Active Directory. And this way you can find out more about your company. Like what is the name of the Active Directory domain? How many users are there? And things like that you have learned from the IT support world. Now you're getting a little more deeper, like what kind of DNS IP addresses they're using, what type of private IP addresses they're using, what type of DHCP setup they're using. So you could play around with this if you know this stuff. If you don't know, then I think it's okay. You can just play around with these, checking around things, and later on from new modules, you're going to learn more and more about how to get all these DHCP, DNS, and all different type of services from this course. If you prefer playing around with a Hyper-V that has a lot of virtual machine already installed inside this lab, go to PLAB DM01. It has more memory. I did not install a server on this just to show you that that you can do it from another server as well. So here in a PLAB DM01, if you go to start, this is a server that is actually joined to the domain. I'm going to open a Hyper-V manager here, and you can see that you have a bunch of virtual servers already running. And like I said, when you go to the company, it's going to be like this, exactly like this. It's going to be a bunch of servers already in the virtualized environment, many different type of like DC1, DC2, application servers, and many things that are going to be running. That's why they're hiring you, by the way. If you are the server admin in a company and they're going to pay you 80, 90K, expect that it's going to be a loaded applications or loaded virtual machines like this, and you are going to just come there, you're going to manage the upgrade them, fix the issues, and then the things that you're doing like from scratch is something that you're learning from a very scratch, but it's extremely rare that you're going to go to a company and there will be nothing and you're just going to start everything from scratch. So feel free to come over here, and if you want more space and in this server, there's a lot more space. You don't need to install a server again and again. If you already install this server, it's not going to stay there once your lab is over. So that reason I'm kind of showcasing all these servers, that you already have servers installed in this environment. For example, if you restart this whole lab, this whole setup will go away. So how do you really go back and kind of play around with the servers again and again? One, you have the domain controllers here, the connected servers. You can play around with these 4 servers. Second, you can go to the PLAB DM01. And then if you want to open something like SA01, which is a standalone server, and you want a second standalone server as well, you can just spin up this machine. So this lab is kind of like a copy of what you're seeing here. Even more virtual machines are available for you. So it's amazing how much you have as a sysadmin to play around with servers over here, and without redoing installation again and again and again, because you got everything connected and working. You just need to learn about servers now. Okay. So here you got the point, that how do you install the server, and now we don't need this virtual machine anymore because we already have so many server already running. So you can go ahead and close this machine just like that, right click on it, turn it off, and you can delete it. You got the point of installation part. We're done with that. So we don't need to do anything with this machine anymore. So we removed it right now. Now, where can I just actually go back and practice more? This same server, you can remove this Hyper-V, and this point we are inside the server. Just assume that the server that we just installed, we named it PLAB SA01, and it is not joined to the domain yet, right? So the first thing you will do when when that server installation is over, it's going to ask you for administrator password. So you will put the password, then you will log in, and then you will change the computer name by coming to the server, rename, and then whatever name you want to give. This is how it's going to be. It's going to look like in the beginning. Then what you are going to do, the first thing, you're going to go to a change product key or update product key, and that is where when you're going to click on the product key, and I explained that product key will be given to you by your sysadmins or engineers or managers, or you need to download it from whichever site you have agreement with Microsoft or any other providers. So you're going to get that key and you will plug it in, and now your server is activated. Okay, once that is done, after that you will go to the system info, and once you go to the system info, you see that it's activated. It shows right here activated, and you see that the server is on the work group. Now in most cases you will probably not run a server on a work group, because it really, in the companies, we use servers that is connected to the domain. So the first thing is that you need to use your IT support skills. And you know this by now, that when I say join a computer to a domain, then you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know, this means you're lacking extreme IT fundamentals, and you should go back to our modern IT support training, finish that, learn about all of that tiny, many things, and then you should really focus on this type of skill set, because I'm not going to go and explain how do you join a computer to a domain. So first I'm going to show you change settings, and then of course you know this stuff, and you're going to click on computer name, change, and you know how to get the domain at this point. Again, if you don't know how to find this domain name, then you're lacking extreme fundamentals. Now, of course, for us, for you, without explanation, what are you going to do? I know your answer right now. You will tell me, okay, Danish, go to first domain controller, and it's in the domain controller. You open that domain controller, and it's right here in Active Directory, practicelabs.com. So you're going to go back to the server, and you will say, okay, Danish, type practicelabs.com right here. So we're going to type practicelabs.com and click enter. And you see how it basically asked me for the username and password. So I know your skill set at this point. I don't need to explain why am I typing administrator, because that's the part of the Active Directory account. And the password is the same password that you use in this lab. So I think I probably put something wrong in there. So let's go ahead and type it again. Administrator, administrator. There you go. I put the right password and it says welcome. And now this server is a part of a domain now. So if I restart this server, it's a part of a domain. And then of course we can then add more things to it. You will lose connection in the beginning because this is restarting. And I'm going to show you another technique. Now you're doing something custom because this lab may not be designed for what we are doing. So if it doesn't come back up, I'm going to show you a technique. How do you get that screen up and running again? So first wait for it, and you see that when you do refresh, let's see what happens to the server. It came up right there and it automatically connected us with administrator account. But we at this point don't need this account. This is kind of like logging in as a local way. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to go ahead, click on these three dots, and I'm going to uncheck the automatic login. And once I do this, you see what's going to happen. It's going to give me more options to log in, other users. So if I do other users, and then I'm going to type, let's say, administrator, and you see when I type administrator, it changes the name to plab SA01. I need to basically come over here and I'm going to type practicelabs.com/ just like that, and I'm going to type the password. Now this is kind of logging into a Active Directory environment. Of course, in reality, what happens is you go to the Active Directory and you add a new account to test it even further, like a help desk account or your own account, whatever you want to name it, you can do that. But right now, I logged in that way to make sure that it's connected through the domain. Okay, so everything looks good to go. And then what's going to happen after this? Our ticket says that give this call to a senior sysadmin after you do all these configurations. So of course, after this, you're going to go and run updates like this. You're going to type updates and then search for updates. It's going to probably come up. If it's not, then you need to search it. Here you go, check for updates. And these is very common things that if people want to test you, they're going to come over here and they'll say, okay, yeah, did you run the updates on this server? But in the lab environment, most likely updates may be disabled because of the way it take the bandwidth and all that time. You don't need to do that. So let's say you know this part, you got that server updated, and then they may say you need to add an antivirus to the server. And antivirus could be also like a special antivirus, so it doesn't block every single thing like normal clients. It could be a little custom thing. So make sure you ask that what kind of antivirus do we need to use. Don't just bring an antivirus and drop it on the server. It may block every connection. And what if you're trying to run a web server and then that antivirus is blocking everything? That could be an issue, right? So everything that you do on a third party side of it, you need to ask these questions because they may have a special antiviruses designed for server. They may also talk about IP addresses. Now, this is another thing that if you are new to IT in this area, of course, I don't expect a new beginner to go to a company and then just start finding out IP addresses. In most cases, they will say we use a tool or we use this technique or we use this DNS technique or whatever technique, we find IP addresses this way. And then you follow it from that engineer, right? They may have a documentation, they may have already a list, they may have already a tool, and then you have to use that. But for servers, you really need to understand how to add a static IP address by going to the networking and then going here, going to the change adapter, and you see how it says cannot, you don't have the appropriate permissions to access this item. Now, remember, you logged in from a very different way. How would you actually log into without logging out? I'm going to show you a technique which you can actually log into the control settings of this server by using a specific command. So basically, you click on OK. If you see this message, go to search. Actually, right click on the start, go to run. And here, what you need to do is type ncpa.cpl. Okay, there you go. So when you do this, you just open that where we want it to go. So here you see that you need to right click on one of the adapters that is available in your company. It could be a VMware adapter, it could be a direct adapter, it could be many other things. Make sure you go and check the one that is currently being used. You're going to go to the IPv4, or if they're using IPv6, most likely IPv4 for now. And you see when I clicked on the properties, this is where the static IP address is already given in this server. In server 99.9%, I think most likely a lot of companies, they will use the static IP addresses like this. As a sysadmin, they may just tell you sometimes, hey, can you change this IP address? This IP address is no longer in use. Can you go update the IP address? Can you go to the advanced settings? We need to add an additional DNS or gateway, or you go here, you basically add a DNS, or you may have to add these different type of specific DNS suffix because they are connected to a different domains and things like that. Now, that is something that's possible for you to come across in your company. And if they have done it, easy way is to just go to one of their servers and just go ahead and kind of like find around different type of settings here, take a screenshot of it, and then maybe ask one of the engineers that, hey, you guys have done this whole settings right here. I would like to know about it. So this way you don't have any issues. So this is kind of like the after installation process, which, like I said, is very company specific thing. But these are the things that I just mentioned: updates, static IP addresses, antiviruses, you know, storages and settings, and maybe they may have some sort of like a additional storages for data for SQL stuff. Like if you go to this PC, they may add a new additional disks from virtual side, and then you will configure them over here and rename them, properly name them, and things like that can happen in most of the companies. So just make sure you ask them these questions. After this, of course, the ticket is that we need to give this to senior admin. So what the senior admin is doing, he's going to come over here. The server is up and ready by junior admin, and then senior admin came over here to manage, and then he went into add roles because these guys have more experience on the IAS side now. So this is like an internal server experience. So this guy came here, he went on next, 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 and then basically he says, okay, I'm going to put a web server on top of this server. You see how server tickets are going to flow in because you know these things then. So this is the web server in IIS. He went in there, click next, and depending on what he wanted from the server, he will pick different things. And then here he will click next here. He will click next. Of course, again, after he knowing a lot about IIS, he's going to pick and choose, or she's going to pick and choose over here, and then click next and install. So just like any other services or roles, web server will be installed, and the next piece is going to be that engineer will pick up a documentation from the vendor, and then they will follow exactly what the vendor want, or that engineer will call the vendor and say, I have everything ready to go ahead and do the WebEx with me or Zoom with me. I will watch you guys configure it, and then let us know how we will manage it. Remember, in system administration, it's not you going out there and finding solutions for every single thing. It's mostly a company. The reason they're paying so much for the server is because they may have a product that required it, and the product is a paid product. They pay thousands of dollars, and that comes with support that has their own engineers. You are not going to be the expert of every single thing in systems administration. That's impossible. You are the expert of this server who is going to make sure that erroring is being handled, any issues that come across, but you cannot be the expert of every single thing. So don't expect that this is going to be one of those things that you're going to go and find a solution on Google all the time. Google may not know anything about that paid product. It could be just totally blocked from Google, and you have to call them, work with them. You will have to need to have that communication skills. You have to sit with them, talk to them, chat with them. And this is what makes an engineer, because they are, yes, they are very capable of doing a lot of things, but they're not going to take over somebody else product and specialty to do a lot of things. That's why they're paying you big money, because you are spending that time, you're spending all that quality time with them. And then once everything is done, of course they will then teach you, or you will need to know how to troubleshoot things on your end, and you may have a high level knowledge on how to do these things. So this is what makes a server engineer an engineer. And of course it goes beyond that, but that's just to get the ball rolling in this course. And I feel like if you do all this lab with me by following exactly what I did, I feel like you have touched a lot of things at this point. And later on, the more you go deeper inside this course, we're going to put more tickets in units, and you're going to learn more and more and more about servers. And at the end, you will be very confident.